There is a new filmmaker, it said, who has exploded, who has a signature that is distinctly his own.
Now, we didn't know we were changing film history, but we really felt like we were doing something very special.
Royale with cheese.
Quentin Tarantino's classic Reservoir Dogs.
Pulp Fiction is the second film written and directed by Tarantino.
This movie fucking works. Shit, this shit's like too intense for human beings. I can stop people's heart, man. That's cinema.
It's a cult, really, around Quentin. And it's happened so quickly.
Please welcome Quentin Tarantino!
It may seem that Quentin just burst onto the Hollywood scene, but the truth is quite different.
He didn't know people in the business. He didn't even finish high school.
It's hard to go back to the very beginning because I always remember loving movies.
So when I was a little kid, my two favorite genres were horror and old classic comedies.
So I was just always seeing adult and adult kind of entertainment, but I also watched all kinds of classic movies on television. At a very young age, my mom liked telling her friends when they'd be over at the house, oh, Quentin's gonna be a director one of these days.
Yeah, I quit school when I was 15 or 16. I always wanted to be an actor at that time. That was the whole game plan, was to be an actor. And when I quit school, I studied with the actor James Best.
Attending courses at the James Best Theater Company was a time of intense learning and gaining acting experience for him. A few years later, he got a job he loved, though it wasn't related to acting.
I was living in the South Bay, and this fellow named Lance Lawson had just opened up his video store called Video Archives.
Hi, I'm Quentin Tarantino, and this is Video Archives.
I was 22 when I started Video Archives, and it really was a movie lover's heaven. I was a customer there, and I really liked it. Eventually, he asked me if I wanted a job, and I was like, yeah, I'd love a job here. This would be a dream.
Wow, what a swell place to work.
And it was until I became a director, it was the best job I'd ever had. And I ended up working there for like 5 years. By the time I got to about 23, I decided to make a film. And it was a film called My Best Friend's Birthday. It was a comedy. I was shooting this thing for 3 years, and I thought we were making something really special. It was kind of embarrassing when I started like really looking at it again. What were we talking about? Ultimately, I think making a movie is the best film school that there ever is. And so I liked it. Well, I didn't know what I was doing at the beginning, and now I know what I'm doing now, and I've had the experience, and so now, okay, but now I'm not gonna make a movie like that anymore. And so I wrote True Romance, well, at least for 2 years straight, when I was trying to get True Romance going. In 2 weeks, we'll have the deal, we'll have the money, away we go.
You seem like a really nice person, and I don't want to offend you.
Ooh.
After a certain point, I said, okay, this isn't gonna happen. The reason it's not gonna happen is because I tried to get too much money when I haven't done anything. It was gonna give me $1 million. So then I wrote Natural Born Killers. A year and a half, not quite 2 years, but about a year and a half passes. And I'm a little further along than I was with True Romance, but we're not gonna be shooting film anytime shortly. I finally said, look, you know what? Nobody is going to give me money to make a movie. That isn't going to happen. And by this time, it looked like True Romance was gonna sell, just the script. So it looked like I was gonna have like $30,000. And so I decided, well, I'm gonna write a film to do for $30,000. Shoot it in 12 days, 16 millimeter, black and white, starring some friends, and I will have a movie made.
But that ultimately didn't happen, or at least not exactly like that.
By this time, I had met Lawrence, and Lawrence was a real godsend.
We were both very broke at the time, so I came over to his place and I read the script. It was an extraordinary piece of writing. I said, look, you gotta give me some time. I think I can raise some real money for this movie.
And I was like, no. I've heard that so much. 5 years I've heard that.
So he ended up giving me 2 months, that's insane.
Lawrence was an actor too, and he was studying acting, and his teacher's wife goes to the actor studio with Harvey Keitel. So he got the script to his teacher read it, liked it, gave it to his wife. She read it, she liked it, she put it in Harvey's hand.
I checked my messages on my machine. Like, hi Lawrence, it's Harvey Keitel calling. I just read this script, Reservoir Dogs. This fellow, Quentin Tarantino, is really talented, and I'd love to help in any way I can. Please give me a call.
I contacted Lawrence Bender and Quentin. We had many conversations. I told them I was committed to making the movie.
If you had Harvey Keitel, you got $1.5 million to make your movie.
I thought that perhaps Quentin's father was associated with these kinds of people, or he himself I was a bit astonished to discover that he gathered all of his awareness about these characters from watching movies.
And then Monty Hellman came aboard, to just kind of act as sort of like a godfather.
I was so intrigued by him, as well as the script, that I said, well, maybe I could help you with this.
And Monty had done a film for the company Live Entertainment. So he got the script to Richard Gladstein.
And one of the reasons why I read it was Harvey Keitel wants to be in this movie.
I made the assumption that whoever could have written this must be an intelligent, articulate person. So if he wrote this in the manner in which he wrote it, you'd have to give him the shot to direct it.
5 guys, black suits, sit around a diner, and then the dialogue starts. And I just started reading it, and I was immediately just completely freaked out by it and loved it. And we made the movie like 4 months later or something.
You fucking thief!
You have a cool sounding name.
Off one of his fingers.
Quentin made his first official film, but the story of the creation of Reservoir Dogs could be a movie in itself.
And so we had a pretty good cast, a great cast. And Harvey said, you're almost done, and you've seen all these wonderful actors, but they're wonderful actors in New York too. And I said, Harvey, well, Quentin and I are broke. We don't have any money to go to New York, and we don't have any money from the budget. And he said, okay, I'll pay for it. I'll take you guys to New York. And there we are in the casting room on Reservoir Dogs.
That's the tricky part about doing like an ensemble piece like this, because you put together 6 actors. Not only are you dealing with 6 different personalities, you're dealing with 6 different ways of working, and you're dealing with 6 different acting styles.
Quentin won their confidence and their trust from day one.
There was something about Steve Buscemi. He was like, okay, this guy has got to be in the movie, and Quentin made him Mr. Pink.
Come on, throw in a buck.
I don't tip. Any of the characters looked like they would be fun to play. They weren't so simple, that each of them were kind of complex.
I see it almost as a black comedy. The best comedy comes from very human situations, and this is, these are real guys.
Have you guys been listening to K. Billy's Super Sounds of the 70s weekend?
Oh, yeah, man, it's fucking great, isn't it? It's a story about a bunch of guys who plan a robbery, and everything that can go wrong goes wrong. Basically, this movie takes place in the course of an hour. Every minute for them is a minute for you. You're stuck there with these guys in this claustrophobic, very deadly situation.
Fuck you, White! I didn't create this situation, I'm dealing with it!
Without Harvey Keitel's help, we would never have seen Reservoir Dogs.
You've done so much on this movie. We want to make you a co-producer. He says, boys, what's taking so long? And that's how Harvey kind of became a producer on the movie.
I couldn't have been happier with my cast. And then we all had a dinner at Harvey Keitel's house after everyone got cast. And I'm just sitting at this table. I just realized, shit, if I keep this movie in focus, I've got a terrific movie. Because these guys are so great.
We were just getting into pre-production, 10 weeks away from shooting. And he said, I really want to go to Sundance. I think it'd be really great for me. And I said, I think it's a great idea too. I'll hold the fort down here. I'll keep pre-production going. And you go away and do your thing and come back, which is what he did.
Quentin participated in a film workshop organized by the Sundance Institute in January 1991.
He came back, he had this amazing experience. There were all these great different directors and people give him their advice. And he shot a couple scenes, and then we went into pre-production to make the movie.
The filming of Reservoir Dogs took 35 days.
I've been working this whole year, and now that basically meant officially the movie was done.
I remember all of us getting in a car and driving up to Sundance. I think that was the first time that we realized that it was going to be a hit.
The thing I remember about first showing it at Sundance was that there were people that were very angry about that there was this much violence in the movie.
Reaction was explosive. I remember there were people who loved it, people who hated it, but the one thing that everybody knew, there was somebody who was really kind of blowing the doors off of cinema at the time, and that he was going to be a real force.
He was just the talk of Sundance, and it's sort of shocking that he didn't win Sundance.
Yes, it did not win, but it got a great launch. It was probably the film that was most remembered at the festival that year.
We didn't sell the film for 3 months after Sundance. Then we went to Cannes with the movie, and it was just like a month before Cannes. Miramax bought the film, the theatrical and television rights.
It was just the most violent movie that I'd seen in years, and I literally had tears of joy in my eyes while watching it. I was like, finally, someone who understands what I want to see in a movie.
And of course, his use of dialogue and his characters. And
Or you want to see Reservoir Dogs? What's that? Well, that's the movie where the guy gets his ear cut off. And that's how it was thought of. It's thought of the movie where the guy gets his ear cut off, all right? I knew what I was going to do after Dogs anyway. All right, I'm doing a film. It's called Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction.
Pulp Fiction is the second film written and directed by Tarantino.
And everybody now, Quentin Tarantino, you know.
After Reservoir Dogs, Quentin started working on a film that revolutionized cinema. But was this film destined for success from the very beginning?
As his second movie, Quentin was very smart. He was very studious as a filmmaker. And he understood that the second movie was almost more important than the first movie as a director.
So you went to write Pulp Fiction, you went to Amsterdam. So what kind of research were you doing in Amsterdam?
Well, it wasn't so much
If you get stopped by a cop in Amsterdam, it's illegal for them to search you.
I had never been anywhere before. I've always wanted to go to Europe, and now I'm going to go. And I'm going to go for a while. And so that actually ended up getting a really cool little place to stay in Amsterdam. And so that's where I just started writing. So they had no connection about Amsterdam and writing. It was just a place to live while I was writing and have this really wonderful experience. But everything that's ever going on with me at whatever I'm writing will find its way into the material.
All right, well, you can walk into a movie theater in Amsterdam and buy a beer.
He came to me and was telling me about a film that he did. He said, I just finished this film and it doesn't feel like a real movie. It turned out to be Pulp Fiction. He did not know.
So Quentin wrote Pulp Fiction, 165 pages long, and every letter in that thing was just amazing. Every word, just a killer.
And everybody had seen Reservoir Dogs and thought it was brilliant too. But people were terrified of the violence, of the tone, of how fresh and new it was, its uniqueness.
The first move was to make this deal with TriStar.
And proceeded to tell us that because our film was too violent, he was going to pass on it. And every major studio followed suit and passed on Pulp Fiction.
Harvey Weinstein, the co-founder of Miramax, was the one who recognized the uniqueness of Pulp Fiction.
We wanted to make this deal with Harvey and Miramax. We got all the other points done, and we got down to that last point, which was that Quentin could designate the cast. And he was saying right up front, it's going to be John Travolta playing the lead.
Basically what the deal is, it's a crime film that takes place in Hollywood, and it involves this whole group of motley characters, all right? And there's like 3 separate stories in the movie, but the same characters float in and out of each story. So by the end of the movie, you don't feel like you've seen 3 stories, you feel like you've seen like one story about a community of characters. I thought was really well done. The idea for all 3 stories was basically to take like the oldest chestnuts you've ever seen, you know, when it comes to crime stories. Vincent Vega and Marcellus Wallace's wife. The oldest story about, like, you know, the big man's, you know, the guy's got to go out with the big man's wife and don't touch her. You know, you've seen the story a zillion times. The gold watch, the second story. You know, the boxer who was supposed to throw the fight and he doesn't. You've seen it a zillion times. And the third story starts off with a couple hitmen showing up at a place and, you know, shooting somebody and splitting. In the third story, in this one, it's like these 2 hitmen, they go and they take care of this guy, but like after they kill him, we don't leave. We hang out with them all morning long and see what happens to them during the course of that morning.
Oh man, I shot Marvin in the face.
Why the fuck you do that? The trick is to take these movie characters, these genre characters in these genre situations, and actually apply them to some of real life's rules and see how they unravel. Well, the film kind of like has like, basically like 3 leads in it. It's got Vincent, who's the lead of the first story, Butch, who's the lead of the second story, and Jules, who's he's really the lead of the third story. And then like there's different characters that come in and support them, like for instance, like Vincent is kind of supporting Jules in the third story. He's got a small little part in the second story with Butch. And Butch has got a small part in Vincent's story. You know, so like they're the 3 leads, and then
Fuck, nigga, what the fuck you just doing with the towel, man? I was drying my hands.
Everybody else in it, the Wolf, Harvey Keitel's character, Mia Wallace, Fabian, other characters like Marcellus Wallace, who's like the big boss man who's in all 3 stories. They're kind of like the bedrock characters that kind of take you through, you know, that tie all 3 stories together. For both novels and film, 75% of the stories you're going to tell will work better on a dramatic basis, on a dramatically engaging basis, to be told from a linear way. But there is that 25% out there that, you know, can be more resonant by telling it this way. And I think in the case of both Reservoir Dogs and Pulp Fiction, it gains a lot more resonance being told in this kind of like wild way. I'm a storyteller. I really like experimenting with a kind of cinema that you're not used to seeing, or taking the form and stretching it and twisting it and doing things that you're not used to seeing all the time.
What happened here was a miracle, and I want you to fucking acknowledge it.
I'm trying to make things funny that you're not used to seeing in a humorous light, all right? And I'm not necessarily doing it by making fun of it. Oftentimes, I'm trying to show it in such a realistic setting.
Why Travolta?
I always thought he was a really terrific actor. John Travolta was so huge when he came out. I always felt bad that he'd kind of like fallen on hard times or kind of fallen by the wayside. Boy, whatever happened to John Travolta? Do you think John can ever come back? He has to. Movies need him. And I just haven't seen him used in a movie the way, you know, I thought he should be used, you know, the way I would use him.
Well, I met Quentin because he had liked some of my earlier work. He just wanted to meet me. I was kind of one of his favorite actors. So we got together and we met and we had a good time. And then I wrote Vincent and gave it for him to read. I didn't write it for him. I just wrote the character. I thought it was one of the best scripts I'd ever read. Great. This is excellent. We get, you know, right off the bat, we get to break the ice, you know, and he's doing a terrific job.
Once you saw it, you easily could see what Quentin saw and why it was the perfect choice. Bruce wanted to play the main part. He called him up and he said, "Bruce, will you play Butch?" And Bruce said, "Well, I'll read it again tonight and I'll call you tomorrow." Phone rings and it's Bruce, and Bruce says, "I read it again, I'm in." It was that easy.
There are 3 stories that are really about one story. It's very difficult to do that. It's very difficult to write something that is that complex and that complicated and still so simple of a story.
When I heard that he had me in mind when he wrote this part for this film, I was too excited. So when I got the script, I read it immediately. Couldn't believe what I read. So I immediately started it again to make sure, and I read it through twice, you know, to make sure. I was like, God, this is so amazing.
He kind of forced us to have this relationship that looked like we'd known each other for a very long time, because that was the first time we met. And then we just kind of instantly fell in love and just kind of started hanging out together and being very close. But John's just he's the loveliest guy in the world. It's amazing how big his heart is and how hard he works and is willing to work on stuff.
First thing I did was I interviewed a bunch of heroin addicts. I took copious notes. And finally, before I let go of the white-collar guy that was a heroin addict, I need to know what I could do, because I don't want to take heroin, to be the closest thing to the feeling. He said, "There's nothing." I said, "I need something. You got to come up with something." So he thought about it, came back, and he said, "Okay, you get really plastered on tequila, and you lie in a warm pool of water. The high of heroin is here, and the low of heroin is here. You'll come up and skim the bottom of the feeling of heroin." I said, "Cool, I could do that."
You know, this movie, $8 million, with this kind of cast, there was no way we could lose with $8 million. Making Pulp Fiction was not an easy movie by any means.
These mundane conversations that hitmen do, are these conversations that you have with people?
Oh yeah, well, the thing is, I think that's what everybody talks about, more or less. People say, "Oh, you talk about pop culture all the time." Well, it's a shared language. Right. That we all have. Yeah, well, they're not just gangster guys talking a bunch of gangster. Yeah, sure, Louis, bring him in the back. You know, there's not that stuff. You know, it's like they're like, "Hey, my wife is coming home, and you can't bring him in the back because she's gonna divorce me."
Right.
Quentin, why did you choose not to let us know what's in the black briefcase?
I like the fact that there are little secrets in the movie. You have to come up with what's in there. The fact that you don't know, that you have to come up with it yourself, gives the scene a tone that I really liked. Someone will come up to me and they go, "Well, what's in the briefcase?" And I go, "Well, I don't know. What do you think is in the briefcase?" And they'll tell me what they think is in the briefcase. I'm like, "Yes, keep thinking that, all right? That's good, all right?" Because if I say, "Well, you know, someone has thought that," then I say what it is, then all of a sudden they invalidate their own creativity. And I'm like, no. I believe that stuff should be out there in the atmosphere about this movie.
It's beautiful. You're going to be taking Mia Wallace out on a date.
It is not a date.
I like that idea that the whole thing is about a date. He's going on the date. He's going on the date with Mia Wallace.
Quentin wanted to have it be as drawn out as it would be if you were meeting someone for the first time and you didn't have anything to talk about and you were a little awkward to begin with.
What do you think? I like the fact that you actually hang out with him, that you get to know Mia, and you actually get to know Vincent with Mia through the course of the time that they're together.
Marcella said you just got back from Amsterdam.
Sure did. Uma's not the kind of person that she was nervous about doing the dance, all right, because she had to dance. She thought she had to be good because I'm having a big scene that's showing, like, we're stopping it to show the dance. But then I waited for the day of the dance day. And so what I did was, that morning I got her and John together in a trailer, and I showed them the dance sequence from this movie, Bend Apart. All right, you know, that little, like, with the three of them. They're not dancing well, but they're actually dancing great because they're having fun, and I'm enjoying watching them, enjoying doing the dance. That's what I want you to do. And they both got it. They just, once they saw that, they just, okay, I know exactly what you want, let's do it.
But it was just a joy. It was this amazing kind of sense that you were doing something special. Now, we didn't know we were changing film history, but we really felt like we were doing something very special.
One of the most important days for the film's success had arrived. On May 21st, 1994, Pulp Fiction premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, where it fought for the Palme d'Or.
As the awards going on, we're not getting any awards. And each award that goes by makes it more and more intense, because the only thing that was left was Kozlowski and us. So the only two movies that could have won the last remaining slot. I'm like, oh my God, what can happen? You know, it's going to be one or the other.
The Palme d'Or goes to Pulp Fiction.
Wow, it was a wow moment. We all went up on stage, and Quentin made his beautiful speech, and it was just one of those holy shit moments.
There was this whole alternative movement, and that was the big world in the culture. The big word in the culture in 94, 95 was alternative. Everything's alternative, and yet that was the mainstream. You know, it started with Nirvana and the music and really crossed over into movies with Tarantino. And what he did was he got people excited about movies in a way that nobody had, probably since Steven Spielberg.
He's bold with movies. He's an aggressive filmmaker. He knows exactly what he wants to do.
Violence, 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 violence. He's the violence guy, and he likes violence, all right, still, in movies, all right?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
I'm not just about that. I'm about other things, too.
Is Pulp Fiction a better film than Reservoir Dogs?
I like it more. I like it more.
You like it more?
I think
Why?
It's more ambitious. It was harder to do. But right now, things are absolutely fantastic. But I intend to have like hopefully a 30-year career.
Pulp Fiction is being honored and praised everywhere. We thank you for joining this evening. We'll see you next time.